Okay, good morning. Welcome, everyone. I almost forgot to tell you last time that I am Beth Schultz. I'm Social Ministry Committee Chair, and we're inviting people to come and talk about their organizations. And this has been really exciting and interesting, and I've learned a lot from having people come and talk to us. The way we're going to do today is we'll do a half an hour for each organization because we only have 2 organizations today. So Heather will be doing the first half hour and then Project Return the second half hour. Heather is going to sort out this puzzle for you, but the organization that she is with is called the Fondy Food Center, and the Food Center runs the Fondy Farmers Market, the Milwaukee Winter Farmers Market, and the Fondy Farm, plus they're a major leader in the Milwaukee Farmers Market Coalition. So I'm going to let Heather explain that for you, and you can ask your questions when she's done. Thank you. Thank you.
Should I go back?
Yeah.
I'll come back here too. Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you for coming. My name's Heather Deaton, like Beth had shared. I'm a member here at St. Matthew's. I have been part of the partnerships for Tanzania and El Salvador, and I'm a Stephen minister here and also a Sunday school teacher. So I know most of you here, but for those that I haven't met yet, it's good to see you. Like Beth had shared, I'm part of an organization called Fondy Food Center. We're going more like by the name Fondy. We're trying to sort of rebrand and drop the food center because it's confusing. Like, what is a food center? What does that mean? You guys give out meals? What about Hunger Task Force? Is that Feeding America? We don't do any of those things. We do other awesome things. And so I've been part of this organization. I started volunteering at the market many years ago as just an assistant helping with the food demos, and then I started helping out with our major fundraising event, which is a Farm to Table Feast the last Sunday in August up on the Fondy Farm in Mequon. I will tell you all about that as we go through the presentation. And then they asked me to be on the board. And so I've been on the board about 3 years now, and I serve as chair of the board, and it's just, Fondy is one of my, all the things of Fondy is one of my favorite places. Our mission is right here. It's bringing healthy local food and economic opportunity to greater Milwaukee. So how we do that is through farmers markets and through affordable land access and through advocacy. And I'll kind of walk through some different things. I've been trained on how to make this thing work, so, oh, I think it did it on its own.
Yeah, but then if you,
Do you think it's paused?
It's paused.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I'm not gonna read you all the words on this slide, but some of the images at the bottom just explain what we do. So this first one, Milwaukee Winter Farmers Market. Now that has been, I believe this is starting our 14th season. We had started, before my time, that market started at the Tommy Thompson Center in State Fair Park, if you remember that. Was run by a separate organization. Then there was a series of events that led Fondy to take on the Milwaukee, it used to be called the Milwaukee County Winter Farmers Market. When we took it over, then we moved it to the Domes. And we've had a great run at the Domes. You know, that's a really wonderful space, and the Domes annex there. We even made it through COVID last year by having to just limit the number of vendors, limit the number of shoppers who could come in at any time. Well, the relationship with the Domes has ended. We really appreciate what they were able to provide to us, but we have really exciting news. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to wait until I get to that slide. Okay, the other market that we run is truly my favorite place in almost the whole world, is the Fondy Farmers Market. We're in the city of Milwaukee on Fond du Lac Avenue, just north of North Avenue. It's a over 100-year-old market. Used to be called the Haymaker Market. It's a permanent structure that we have many vendors that sell there every year, and thousands of customers that come through, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes as well. Then we have our Fondy Farm project, and that's where, again, we provide affordable land access to small farmers who wouldn't necessarily otherwise be able to find the land or afford the land to farm on. lot of our farmers on the farm project, as well as at our Fondy Farmers Market, are also from, they're of Hmong descent. And so as that population of farmers is aging, we need to make it where their younger generations want to and can make a living doing the farming, so we can keep our small local farmers instead of it only being bigger organizations or everything coming from out of state. And then advocacy is that next picture there. So something that we do, again, in order to provide healthy local food to like food deserts in the city, is that we take it SNAP or EBT benefits. So the food stamps, food shares, they can come to the market and they can redeem off of their card at our booth for tokens. So they come and say, I want $20 off my card. So we give them 20 tokens, because each individual farmer and each individual producer can't take SNAP benefits, but we can, and then we give them tokens that then they spend at the farmers, and then the farmers come back around and turn those in for credit, so they get paid out on those tokens. Working that EBT booth at Fondy Farmers Market, where we're running those transactions, it is where you can just, that is our mission. Like, you see the people come through needing to spend their benefits on healthy food in their neighborhood. And then you see these producers actually making a living selling at our market. And a big part of that is because we have the EBT benefits. And that's how we're able to keep that market so thriving. The last little icon there is a picture of our, on the end, is from our gala event. Like I had mentioned, it's a farm-to-table feast the last Sunday of August each year. And it's usually we have like 6 to 8 local awesome chefs that do like a 5-course meal. And then there's a fundraising appeal. You get to tour the farm, and it's a wonderful day. Just ask Eric, he's always there with me. Okay, I don't know, I think I'm gonna do this right. Okay, so here's just images from, again, the market. I told you a lot about this already, but I did want to point out a few things. You know, part of being able to have this market is to continue cultural traditions. So before, say, maybe the last year and a half or so, we've had a lot of events there and ethnic kind of festivals, if you will, where we'll have different dance groups come in and share their cultural heritage. And this at the bottom there is the Fondy Park. Now, when I started going to Fondy, that was a vacant lot filled with, you know, trash that would end up in there, and it was fenced off, and it was just like a dirt and cement ground. And working with the city, we were able to work to get that into this beautiful park. There's a band shell back here. There's tables that have like checkerboards built into them. There's a whole environmental capacity to it, where there's a bioswale that collects all the rainwater from the park and off of the structure, those blue pillars. That's like the Fondy structure. And so that's just a really, really neat thing. And we have different events that people are able to apply and use the space for community events. What else did I want to share here? Okay, another thing with the EBT. So it's really important, right, that people can spend their benefits where they want to and where they can access good food. If you think about if there's a lack of grocery stores in a neighborhood, and you're trying to only use your EBT benefits at, like, say, a convenience type store, or if there's a lack of diversity when it comes to fresh fruit, if there's only one kind of apple, you can imagine, you know, you'd like to have a bit more choice than that. So that's a really important thing. We actually also helped other markets become qualified to take SNAP benefits too. I think even, I know the Tulsa market does, and that's part of the work that we do with the Farmers Market Coalition. But another thing that is really important to our organization and to me is to raise funds and get grants for matching dollars. So like I said, when I work that EBT booth and I can see the whole circle, when we have market match, like, the other part of it is how important the EBT benefits are to the market and the market match. So if a guest or shopper comes up and they want to take, say, $20 off their EBT card, if we have matching dollars, which are these separate little, like, magazine type paper dollars, right? We actually give them these tickets. So we can give them the $20 in the tokens, like I mentioned before, and then if we have the matching dollars, we can also give them $20 more. So for $20 off of their SNAP card, they can get $40 worth of food. And like that just gives me the chills, because when I work that line and we have market match, the booth line is incredibly long. And so like my time there is even more important and valuable to be able to get people through, because if there's a lot of people coming through because of the matching dollars, and they know we advertise when we have matching dollars, we advertise when we run out. So far this year, we have distributed $92,000 in market match to families, and then those farmers, it's that whole full circle. That's twice as many dollars off of the SNAP benefits that can be used at our merchants or our vendors as well. And so that is something that when we do raise those funds, those tickets I talked about, they're actually good at any Milwaukee area farmers market. They're listed on there who can take the market match. So they can get the market match from our market and they can spend them somewhere else, even if that ends up making sense for them. I'm just looking at my notes, making sure I don't miss anything. We have more than 40 vendors at our market each year. Okay, I'll try this. Do you think that's paused, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so I was so excited. I got this presentation. It was a little bit outdated because it was before we had gotten some things changed. So like I mocked up the bottom. I'm like, this year the Winter Farmers Market starts on November 6th, goes through the beginning of April. It's 8:30 to 11:30, but because that relationship with the domes has ended, I forgot to X out the domes on there, but what I would have replaced it with, and there will be a press release later this year when everything gets totally all T's crossed and I's dotted, is we're going to be at the Deer District.
Oh, great.
So we're going to be at the Gather, which is like the second story of that event space. It is an event space, so it's right there across from Five-Star Forum, and we're going to be there this season. And we'll start the first 2 weeks, the November 6th and whatever's a week later is going to be out, like it's an outdoor market, and then we'll move inside. And so that's going to give us an opportunity, as much as we like really love the domes, and when there wasn't snow in the parking lot, there was fairly easy parking. There's not awful parking by the Deer District. It's just going to be a little bit different. There's a lot of different public transportation that people can use, and I think the vibe of this market is a lot different than our Fondy Farmers Market. The winter market, has anyone here been to the winter market, like at the domes? Eric doesn't count, but yeah. And so, it's a lot of local producers. I do a lot of shopping, like for gifts for the holidays or hostess gifts if I'm gonna go somewhere. It's all local people, which is still incredibly important for our economy and for giving people a venue in order to get their products out, or to get their name out. Maybe they're available on their website. Maybe their products are available in a local grocery store. But if you don't know to even look for it, that's where the Milwaukee Winter Farmers Market can really help those vendors as well, as to get their name and their products out there. But I think at the Deer District, like I said, it's going to be, it's just going to be a great like a new start in a new place. And I think that that's such a popular area now as well. It gives us access to some different customers that maybe weren't in the Mitchell Park area. So I'm going to pause for a second. If anyone here or watching later or ever wants to go to either of these markets, and you're like, well, I don't know where to go, you just call or text or email me or whatever, because I will take you, because I love both of these markets so much. So yeah, I'd love to see you guys there. Give you a tour, introduce you to all my pals. Yeah, that's one thing about the Fondy Farmers Market, the summer market especially, is that as a family, when my kids were more when they listened to us more, now they're too old, but we would go, that's where we spent every Saturday morning. And you know, I sent Christmas cards to my farmers, and you know, before COVID, I never left without a hug, you know, and it's a really important part of, I know, my life and our lives, and just the relationships that I've been able to build there with getting to know people, and knowing where your products and your food come from. You know, like I mentioned, like going to the winter market and like buying gifts. I mean, it's super fun to be able to be like, hey, here's this beautiful basket and, you know, of these handmade soap. And I know the exact person who actually made these for you. Or even when you think about cooking for your family and you think, you know, who grew these strawberries or who grew this butternut squash? Well, it's Bob Craig of Craigland Farms, you know, who I've known for now 10 years. And it just makes a big difference. He also does cider, so I make this one thing in a crock pot that's butternut squash and cider, and I'm like, hey, it's my Bob Craig recipe. Everything's from Bob. Anyway, so I think I think we have 40 to 50 vendors at the winter market too. It's a lot of the same like vendors of the prepared food that are at the Tosa market too. So if you've got like your faves down there and you're like, where do I find them in the winter? Well, it's gonna be at the Gather at the Deer District this winter. So this is just a slide about the farm project. So I don't have 2021 stats here, but in 2020 we had 23 small farmers farming 40 acres of land. Our farm project is up at the Mequon Nature Preserve. So if anyone's familiar with that, yeah, Beth's giving a little clap. Yeah, is that your thing, Mequon Nature Preserve?
Well, I used to take my kids there for field trips, my school kids.
Yeah.
And I know Kristen real well.
Yeah. So they've been a great partner of ours. It's up on like I gotta do this right, the northwest corner is where our farm land is. And so there's a barn there, there's like a shed type barn there. It's where we have the feast I've mentioned a couple times, where we put a tent and bring our band in. It's just a fabulous place. We also have a professor from Marquette. His name is Michael Schlappy. He has a rice project, so he's actually growing rice in Wisconsin, which hadn't been maybe done ever or not for a really long time. And the rice is like awesome. And he's, I think every other week he's at the winter market as well. And I think he sells it at Outpost too, and at the glass pantry, but whatever, okay. So anyway, but these are all small farmers, and it's not only these like old farmers that are, you know, trying to still make this work. It's also brand new farmers like Martise Scales. I think you know Martise, right? Connor, yeah, so him and his wife have started Scales Family Farm because he felt literally called. Like he said, you know what, I woke up one day and God said you were gonna be a farmer. And he's been able to make that happen. And that's a great local farmer to get to know is Scales Family Farm. They make teas and they make fire cider and they sell some of their vegetables and they do some herbal things too. But so we also help them with using some equipment too. So we own some equipment that we're able to let them use. Our director of farms is Stephen Petro, and he's a great like advocate for our farmers. He's a sounding board. He's a cheerleader. He is someone who can help connect them with resources. So it's a really important part of the Fondy puzzle is the Fondy Farm. And then they're able to either sell at the Fondy Farmers Market or the Winter Market or any market that they choose to get into based on where they think that it makes the most sense. I'm almost done with I talked a bit about the Farmers Market Coalition, just bringing the Milwaukee area markets together because there are so many of them and they all have different challenges and they share a lot of the same challenges, and being able to kind of align and learn from each other and also provide that advocacy. Like I said, being able to help other markets take the SNAP benefits was something that Fondy was, because SNAP benefits are so important to our market because of like where our location is and should be important to all markets regardless of where the location is. And so that's where we were able to work with them. And then really just looking at those like underrepresented people in local food systems, like whether it's people of color or the LGBTQIA+ community as well. Okay, so that's the end of my prepared slides, and I want to see, I didn't make the presentation, so I want to look at the pictures here. These are just pictures from like our events and our market. Here's a picture from the farm. That's one of the farm tours. Here's Allison. She's one of our prepared food vendors. That's right by our office at the market. That was our ribbon cutting, I think, of the park. And then in the bottom there is a picture from a few years ago of our awesome chefs who support our Fondy Feast each year. Okay, I think that's the end of my prepared remarks. If there's any, oh, I have one more thing. I'm just gonna go grab this. Okay, so as much as Fondy and the Winter Farmers Market are my like top 1 and top 2 favorite markets, there are many other markets. You know, the Fondy Farm Project is one of my favorite farms. There are many other farms. We do not run this publication, although I think maybe someday we will. But this is the Farm Fresh Atlas. And so this was, this has been around for quite a long time, and it's republished every year. So I have some over there, and I'd recommend that you take them, because it's got a list of like year-round local food guide. So it's broken up into farms and producers, and then also like some different businesses and organizations, and then the farmers markets are at the back. And so you can look up any of the markets that you've heard of, or if you're trying to look for something in your location, or who's open in winter, and what are their hours. Now always check their websites for any updates. Like we had to put stickers on here because the Milwaukee Winter Market was like, the name got confusing, and I think it said the Domes, and it says TBD now, but again, by the end of this week we'll have everything set so it can now say the Gather. But this is a great publication to get you thinking about like where it is you'd want to shop, or who's the producers you want to look for, and again, check in their websites. But it's a really good resource, and I love when this comes out every year. Okay, now that's the end of my prepared remarks. If there's questions or comments. Yeah.
I don't recall if you said, where do the matching dollars come from when you have them?
Yeah, so the question is, where do the matching dollars come from for the market match? So that's through grants and donations. So we have a couple of different, so our executive director writes a lot of grants, and working with the Milwaukee Farmers Coalition, and she partnered with some other farmers market organizations to write a grant request for some of that matching dollars. If we get unrestricted funds, I think we can put that towards there as well. That was a great question, thank you. Yeah.
Are there any organic farmers at the Fondy Market?
Yeah, so the question is, are there organic farmers at the Fondy Market? So for organic farmers to call themselves organic, there's a lengthy certification process. Our small farmers, in all honesty, don't necessarily have the time and the means to go through that process. So you can ask them what they use on their products, and that can give you a sense of what kind of chemicals there are. I know that most of them don't do anything. They don't do a lot of chemical processing on their farmland, but that would be something to ask them. And if they are organic, they will say organic, because I know we did have a couple farmers that were specifically organic, and I believe in here it shows it too in the Farm Fresh Atlas. Sheila.
How much land does a particular farmer get? Is it a set amount, or do they make a request like, I'd like this much to grow this thing?
Yeah, so the question is, how do farmers get, and how much land do they get at the farm project? So there's 40 acres right now, like the stat was 40 acres with about 23 farmers. So I think the minimum they can get, I think, is an acre. And then if they want more, then they just apply for more if we have that amount of land. And then they just pay their rent, because they're renting that land. So they pay by the amount of land that they're using. We're also working with the, okay, I gotta think, it's an acronym. The Ozaukee Washington Land Trust, OWLT, to work on additional land. So there may be more news on that in the next several months as well.
Heather, how do people get involved? Like if someone wanted to volunteer, what would they, what are the kinds of things they could do and how would they get connected?
Yeah, thanks, Sue. So the question is, how do people volunteer or get connected to the organization? So there are many different volunteer spots at the markets. You could reach out through our website. We have been trying to find the best website to use to have volunteers sign up, because there's Flipcause and there's Sign Up Genius, and so I think that the operational side of that has been changing a bit, but like last year, Eric and I volunteered at the winter market a lot to be the clickers, count the number of people in and out, or just to even work the ABT desk. Fondy, the summer market, which I didn't have dates on here, it actually goes till the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So early season and late season, we're only open on Saturdays, but in full season, which is like mid-June to mid-October, we're open 4 days a week. So Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Wow.
And so that's a really important piece of that, of being a part of that neighborhood as well. But so looking at our website, there's also many things that we can use help on committees if you want to help like organize events or just show up. Sign up to just show up and be a resource at whether it's an event like the Fondy Feast. We always need servers and people to do dishes. This year we were my son had to recruit like 3 of his friends and they did an awesome job. Eric and I sat, because we were guests that year, we actually just sat and had the dinner, but then also even like just helping, sometimes we need people to do surveys of shoppers at the market to find out like their zip code and what they think, how much they think they spent, and cleaning up, like picking up or sweeping up trash and things like that. I know we're looking always for, if we have a bigger project, we look for groups as well. So maybe if that's something that even as a group here that we may want to work on, say, hey, here's a work day that we want to go and do a couple hours to help like pull weeds out of the sidewalk cracks, which is like something that makes me crazy at the market. That could be good. And then also on our website too, there's obviously a donate button, and I've talked a lot about the feast. That's a great way to have a wonderful evening out at a farm, hear stories from the farmers, hear stories from the chefs, which farms, if you don't know, are really important to local restaurants as a way for them to get their product at locally and support each other here.
How do they transport the products to the market?
Yeah, so the question is, how do farmers get their products to the market? So they get them in like the backs of their vans, in their larger trucks. They do all of the work to harvest and then to bring them to the market. Coming to the Fondy Farmers Market, like many people have probably gone to a farmer's market somewhere, right? One thing that drew me so much to the Fondy market, and I'm just piecing something together, when I got involved with Fondy was like, I'm just gonna say like a million years ago, right? It was a long time ago when I think it was their executive director at the time or somebody involved at the market. I didn't ever really know this person, but they had come to St. Matt's and talked about the market and said how it was like hardcore produce. There are some prepared foods and there's some specialty products, but it's mostly produce. And you could go, and I haven't bought a big giant bag of greens in a while, but you can get a giant bag of like collard greens or kale for like $4. Not that it's just about the money, but it was kind of like, wow, I'm interested in big giant bags of greens. At least at that time I was, and it got me interested to go there, and then just to see, again, you see the farmers that are growing this food. And like right now, if you went today, because I'm not actually sure, I don't know if we're open today now. I don't know where that transition, like I said, mid-October, if we stopped Sundays now. But if you were to go today and it's chilly, they're out there with their little stoves in the back of their booth, trying to stay warm and things like that. And it's just really to see the hard work of what it takes. Like Beth, you just like asked, like, how do you get it from the farm to the market? Well, you harvest it, you clean it up in the way that makes it presentable. You have to rubber band every single thing, if it's a bag or like a thing of beets or whatever, the rubber bands that are always on those. And then you bring it to the market and you have to, put your prices on the table and you have to get it all organized. And so it is really a ton of work. for them to do that. Did you have a question, Eric?
It was just a comment to corroborate her story about the Fondy Feast. I highly recommend going. We've been on both the guest side where we paid for a seat and volunteer side, and we've had fun every time we've done it. It's a really cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, and.
Great food. Yeah.
They're great
And if you
food.
volunteer, you still get a lot of food if you want.
Yeah,
So.
I don't know which side I like better,
Yeah.
to be honest, the guest or the volunteering, because there's a lot of camaraderie that you get, working and helping the chefs back in the kitchen, which is a tent. I think it was 2017.
The tornado?
There was a tornado warning. This is the only time we've ever had a bad weather event. There was like a tornado warning and like sirens, and like we had to go into the lower level of this barn, and yeah, that was in the storm raiser or whatever we called it, barn raiser event of that feast. It was still fun though. Yeah. I think I'm gonna get the shepherd's hook. So any other questions? I'll be around at the end. Thank you guys, and don't forget to grab your Farm Fresh Atlas at the end, and I'll step away.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
You bet.
Huh? All right, and now we're going to hear from an organization that has been around for, I believe, 41 years, Project Return. And Return stands for Returning Ex-Incarcerated People to Urban Realities and Neighborhoods. And it exists to help men and women make positive, permanent returns to the community around them. And representing that organization, we have Wendel Hruska, who is Executive Director, and Conor Williams. And they will talk to you about Project Return.
Do you want to stand? If you want to do that, or I'll sit here. Do you want to stand?
Sure.
So,
Great.
well, good morning. My name is Wendel Hruska. I'm the Executive Director of Project Return here in Milwaukee. Project Return, as was stated, is a 41-year-old nonprofit organization. We exist to help individuals returning from incarceration with their reentry needs. How we do that is really dependent on the individual that comes to us and what they're needing help with. But I'll start out a little bit with our history. Project Return stemmed out of the Social Concerns Committee of Cross Lutheran Church over on 16th and Walnut, in between Walnut and Vine. When Cross Church looked around the community and saw within a 2-mile radius of the church, there were 4 minimum security prisons. And in that same 2-mile radius, there was nothing really to help those individuals returning from incarceration to reacclimate back into the community. About that time, a group of formerly incarcerated individuals heard about what Cross Church was doing, that they were beginning to make maneuverings into this field, and they came to Cross Church and really challenged the church and challenged the congregation with the gospel, the gospels of, when did you visit me when I was incarcerated? And Cross Church took that mantle and started up a pilot program that year in 1980 called Project Return. We were incorporated a year later, and we've been in existence ever since. We were housed at Cross Lutheran Church until we moved to our current location, which is in the Milwaukee Enterprise Center, Welford Sanders Enterprise Center, over in Hadley, in between Hadley and Locust, because of space limitations at Cross Church. As I said, our services are really geared to the individuals that come to us, what they need help with, what their specific needs are. So as you can imagine, an individual returning from incarceration, down for several years, the community changes without them. So it's almost like there's an alien abduction. They're taken away, and then they come back, and communities very much change. Their families changed, the communities changed, where they used to hang out changes as well. And unfortunately, too many individuals are returning to a community that is very disparate, that is very poor and poverty-ridden. And their way in which they've handled the stress, the way that they've handled these struggles in the past, is to go back to criminal thinking patterns. Go back to drug addictions, go back to alcohol addictions, go back to doing what they need to do to survive. I say this a lot about our population that we work with. The individuals we work with are really, really, really experts on survival. Unfortunately, sometimes that survival means it's eat or be eaten type of mentality. And what we try and work out with Project Return is help those individuals get past that mentality and get to a mentality where they can be positive, permanent members of our community, where they can be individuals that can give back and become somebody that we want to have as a neighbor. Our services are myriad of different services, as you can imagine, and stuff. Most individuals returning from incarceration have got issues with employment, some housing issues, some just reentry issues, addiction issues, things of that nature as well. But mainly, what individuals returning from incarceration deal with that we see on a regular basis is they just don't know how they can get the resources, they don't know what they're eligible for, and they don't believe that they are worthy to be a part of our society. They think that they are that number that they're given when they're incarcerated, and unfortunately, that's the way in which they live. And there's never, ever, and it's very interesting, I go into institutions pre-COVID all the time. Actually, I went into an institution for the first time post-COVID, ideally. Since COVID started, just a week ago. It was at Prairie du Chien Correctional Institution. They had their resource fair, and it was so great, and this is a weird thing to say, but it was so great to get back inside an institution. It was so great to see the guys there and to be able to know what they're going through and how we might be able to assist them while they're there and when they get released as well. To hear the struggles, to hear the stories, to hear what people are what their goals and aspirations are, and how we might be a part of that, and how we might be able to reduce those barriers so that individual can be successful with that reentry. That is our goal with everything that we do. There are a lot of different programs we offer. Like I said, we work with employers and local employers to try and get people into employment opportunities, to get people into job training opportunities, to get people to the next step in their employment skill set so that they can get the better job, get the higher paying job, so they can be sustainable. We try and help people with their addictions by getting them into alcohol and drug use treatment and support programming. We also actually have an individual on our staff who will work with individuals with mental health counseling and get individuals into different types of counseling depending on the severity of their mental health illness. Most individuals returning from incarceration do have some semblance of an addiction or a mental health issue. And so that is something that we need to address and we need to work with immediately upon their release if they're going to be successful. And a lot of those individuals also are undiagnosed, so they don't even know what their struggles are, so we're working through that process with them as well. But more than anything else, we provide a community where people can come back in a non-judgmental fashion and have a support network where they can just be. And it is amazing how you don't necessarily recognize, and we take that for granted with our families and with our friends and stuff. But so many people coming back from incarceration don't have that network, don't have that ability of just being in our community and stuff. And it's so great to be able to talk about stuff. I'm gonna because I'm tired of hearing myself talk actually, I want Conor to talk a little bit about our Circles of Support program that Conor has been instrumental in helping us to get up and running. Started in 2019, November of 2019, and has been really a success even through the pandemic. So Conor, would you like to talk about that?
Sure, and we can pass these around
Yep.
at the same time. So I work with Wendel. I work at Community Advocates Public Policy Institute, but I work with Wendel because I work on the area of poverty in Milwaukee, and there's a intersection between poverty, criminal justice involvement, race in our city, and so I'm an economist by training, but in trying to work on the multifaceted problem of poverty in Milwaukee, I also work in the reentry space. One sad thing about reentry is just less than half of all people who go to prison every year have previously been in prison. And we have a revolving door in our prison system. There's three separate three separate forms of incarceration in our community. One is at the county level. We have the county jail and the House of Corrections, and they typically that's for people who are sentenced to less than a year of incarceration. And there's a significant number of people that go in and out of our county jail and our House of Corrections every week. Then there's the state prison system that's run by the Department of Corrections, and that's the state. And there's about, somewhere in the region, about 22,000 people in our state prison system. Maybe a little bit less now because of COVID, maybe 21,000. But if you go back to the early 1970s, there were only 5,000 people in our state prison system. And to Tommy Thompson's regret, which he says himself, when he was governor, he built a lot of extra prisons, and a lot of people were incarcerated. And why is that connected to the work that I do in economics? Because around the time a lot of the large factories are closing in Milwaukee, A.O. Smith and Alice Chalmers, and large numbers of people are losing their jobs, there's a significant increase in the incarceration, imprisonment of people, particularly people of color in Milwaukee. And at the same time, unfortunately, there's the crack cocaine epidemic that's coming to our city. And one thing's connected to all those things, I believe, is hopelessness and maybe a spiritual poverty. And one thing I appreciate about working with Wendel is there's a lot of spiritual life in being in community with people who've been previously incarcerated. They remind me of some of my friends who are on the other side of addiction, who are no longer enslaved to their addiction. There's a truth and a clarity to the way that they see the world. They've set aside pretenses, and it's a gift. It's a gift that originally I was very fearful of people who were previously incarcerated, and some of them have previously done some great harm to others. But I've only found life in being in that community, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for Project Return and their 41 years of faithful service to embracing men and women who are coming home from incarceration. It also reminds me of Pastor Mick Rochke from Reformation had a beautiful phrase that we're all blessed and broken. When you're in community with people who can't hide their brokenness and don't seek to hide their brokenness, it allows me to not only claim the blessedness in my life, but also the brokenness, and to understand that all of us human beings struggle, and we all need the God of second chances that we have, thank God, and that it's a mutual redemption. Being in community with men and women who are coming home from incarceration, sometimes doing something very small for them can make a profound difference in their life, and the gratitude is it's life-giving, so it is. So a few years ago, we started Circles of Support, and Circles of Support have the goal of building some pro-social network for people coming home from incarceration, many of whom are very isolated. Some of them have got loving families that support them, but a significant number don't. And this reminds me of the grace of God. A small thing done for people who got very little can make a profound difference in their lives. And being in Circles of Support is, I really appreciate you being part of that, Brian. And I appreciate the support from St. Matthew's for Circles of Support. There's about 22 Circles of Support happen every month, which is there's a lovely line in Scripture, without a vision the people perish, and I think we have a vision for how we should be as a community in Milwaukee that's short of the beloved community. It falls short of that, but I think Circles of Support are a manifestation of the beloved community, or what we call under this roof the kingdom of God. And so our goal is to build a space in our community where everybody's created in the image of God, and everybody has a purpose in life. But some people have been squeezed out of the space to be able to realize that purpose. And I think circles of support play a small part in helping to create that space for those individuals to flourish and to contribute to our community. So I appreciate being part of that with Wendel, and you're up next. So the Circle of Support, we started in 2019 with Conor and many other organizations. The Department of Corrections are an invaluable partner within circles as well. The great thing about that, and I've sat in on many circles, as says Conor, I always walk away from a circle feeling more whole and feeling more part of a community. It is never failed to be able to do that. And it is so interesting to see in the course of circles, especially people who are coming for the first time, a little skeptical, not sure what this is about and stuff, how in the course of the group you just start to see that melt away and how they start to understand they're not trying to get me to be something I don't want to be. They're not trying to be, an extension of the Department of Corrections. They're trying to work with me and giving me an outlet to be able to talk. 2 Mondays ago, we started up a circle. So our circles have been in different communities, but what we're going more towards now in the future are more demographic specific circles that are going to be helping specific groups of individuals. We just started up a circle a couple Mondays ago that is for registrants, people who are on the registry for sex offenses. We had 8 people attend this circle, 4 people who came on their own, and then 4 people who were referred by the Department of Corrections. Of the 4 people that came referred by the Department of Corrections, 3 of them did not want to be there. They were forced to be there by their agent. They had no interest in being there, and you could tell when they walked in. I'm here because I have to be here. And I mean, one of them, the first question they said is like, how long is this? And it's like, okay, I get that stuff. But it was so interesting. So the circles last for about an hour and a half. This circle lasted for 2 hours. Nobody left. At the end of the group, the 3 people that came out that didn't want to be there were like, when's our next group? When's the next time we can do this? And it was so powerful because they began to recognize that, especially for registrants, there are very limited spaces in the city of Milwaukee where they can gather, where they can get together, where they can talk about what they're going through. This provided them with that opportunity. We have our next circle this Monday, I believe, because it's an every other week circle. So we're very, very excited to see how that grows and how that expands and stuff. Other circles we're going to be starting up here in the near future is one specifically for women. We're going to also, hopefully, in the very near future, be setting up a circle for individuals returning from incarcerated who identify as LGBTQ+. As you can imagine, a lot of specific needs that come out of these groups and things that aren't necessarily willing to share or be open about with people who don't share their viewpoints and share their perspectives and stuff. So trying to give people that ability there and stuff. Very excited about where that's going, and that has led us also into other avenues of expanded programming. The great thing about circles, and I was skeptical when we first started this, during the pandemic, we had to move our circles from an in-person thing to a virtual group, and we're using a Zoom format. And I was very, very skeptical because you don't get the interaction, you don't have the face-to-face type of relationship building. But it really worked for individuals, and it's worked for a couple different reasons. One, the Department of Corrections wanted it. They made sure that it was going to be able to be happening and stuff. They eased up restrictions on people about how they could use social media, how they can get into these types of formats, and they gave people the opportunity to be successful with it. And the other aspect of it was people returning from incarceration are isolated in our community. They're kind of pushed to the edges and pushed to the seams and stuff, and they don't really feel like they're part of our community and stuff. During the pandemic, that was only highlighted, that was only heightened. Circles gave people an opportunity to be in community, to be with others, and so we really saw an expansion of that program during the pandemic, when a lot of other programming was beginning to fall by the wayside in a lot of different organizations. So we're very, very excited that that's continued. We have some circles that are now meeting in person, and we have some circles that are still meeting via Zoom, and I anticipate that, God willing, the pandemic ever ends, that we will still be able to utilize some of these different some different technologies. So we've learned some things through this pandemic as well, which is positive. One other aspect that we're working on here, and I do want to stop eventually here and stuff, so we can get some questions.
I'm really, really excited about an area we're moving into at Project Return, and that is our housing component. We've worked with landlords for a number of years. If you go on our website, you'll see a listing of landlords that will work with us, that will rent to our clientele, that we will not discriminate against them. Some people have different restrictions based on where they're located at and stuff, but for the most part, they will work with most of our clients. What we've discovered through our work over these years, and it's only become heightened the more we get into it, is that housing underlines every other need. Every other need: employment, addictions, support counseling and stuff. If you don't have housing, you really can't think about anything else. And that's not necessarily any news to anybody in this room, but it just becomes so apparent. So while there are great landlords out there and stuff, and there are great programs out there that do provide housing, there's just not enough. So Project Return, and Conor serves on a committee at Project Return, is looking into how we might be able to provide a housing in kind of like a reentry campus type style, where right there in the housing they have resources: mental health counseling, alcohol and drug abuse treatment and counseling, they have employment counseling, that have supportive services, circles of support, as well as partner organizations coming in and providing specific, maybe healthcare related needs or other things there as well. So as the individual can get, it's a one-stop shop where the individual can get all the resources right where they live. Our population that we work with have got geographic areas in the city that they will not go to. They won't cross. They won't cross the viaduct, they won't cross the interstate, they won't cross on the other side of that cemetery over there and stuff. It's just a reality. So we need to be where they're at in order to affect real change in our community. So we're very, very excited about this. We're hoping that within the next couple of months, we'll actually be able to identify the spaces and sites we want to be at, and then hopefully within a year or a year and a half and stuff, that we'll actually begin building and get this building up and running. With that, you've heard me talk way too much. So I'm thrilled to answer any questions that you might have about Project Return or the reentry population, or Conor as well. If you have any questions about Conor, I can answer them. Yes.
Where does funding come from for you guys?
We are, so we don't get any government funding. And that is by choice, really. We used to, about 2008, about 80 to 85% of our budget came from grant or from contracts with the Department of Corrections. And at that time, our board of directors decided that they wanted to get away from the Department of Corrections funding. At that time, the Department of Corrections was very different than it is today. When you got funding from the Department of Corrections, they controlled your program. They told you who you could work with, what services you could offer them, and what you couldn't. And we always kind of fudged that a bit and stuff and worked around the edges and stuff by giving other kinds of work, other kind of programs as well. But we decided we wanted to move away from that. And then, I don't know if you guys remember 2008 and 2009, a recession hit. Fun time to get back funding. But we survived, and we came out stronger for it and stuff. So this is a long beat path to get to your question stuff. Where we get our funding from is from private donations, private grants, like the executive director of Fondy and stuff, writing a lot of grants, talking with a lot of funders and stuff, really talking with individuals about what we do and things and stuff. The great thing about reentry work today, from when I started 21 years ago, is when I started 21 years ago, and I was saying this earlier, people look at me and go, why? Why would you want to do that? Especially coming from Northeast Iowa, why would you care? You know, and now when I talk to people about it, people understand the need. And so this transcends into funders as well. This is a core area where people really want to see change happen, and we're seeing a lot of it happen these days and stuff. So private grants, individual donations, faith communities, that's really where we get our funding from.
Is most of it local, or does it branch out wider in the state, or?
Most of it is local. We do have some from a couple of our our biggest funders from the Chicago area.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But his very, he came up, they came up and visited us and kind of fell in love with Milwaukee, and they see some real potential where their dollars can have a tremendous impact in the city of Milwaukee. So they want to be a part of that. And I'm willing to name any building after them if they get one.
See, I'm from Chicago. We're not all bad.
Yes.
Tell us that at the end of the day when the Bears and the Packers.
I expect they'll lose, so it's okay.
I'm an Eagles fan. We do that all the time. So.
you mentioned at the very beginning that Project Return was really formed after this challenge by people who were formerly incarcerated to do something. How do you use the voices of the people using your services to guide your programming? What does that look like?
That is a great question. How do we use the voices of people who are formerly incarcerated? It's very, so those groups of individuals that came, 2 of them were initial board members. And throughout the history and the run of Project Return for 41 years, we've always had the voice of our clients in positions of leadership within the organization. Whether it be on the board of directors, currently we have a staff of 7 people. Of those 7 people, 5 of them have been formerly incarcerated themselves. That has been a challenge in years past. I talked about how the Department of Corrections has changed a lot in the last 10, 12 years here and stuff. Well, 10, 12 years ago, I was actually told by somebody from the Department of Corrections that I should fire somebody on my staff because they're formerly incarcerated. Now, the Department of Corrections writes into their grant that they want people who've been formerly incarcerated to be part of these projects. We're beginning to understand how much of an impact that life experience can have in really affecting change. It is fantastic to see in our office. In our office pre-pandemic, and it's getting kind of back to this and stuff, I kind of equated it to the feel of like a barber shop. You know, you have people who just come and they'll hang out for the day and stuff because we're a safe place. We're a place where people can come and not be judged and actually be open and honest about things. I will tell you some of the conversations I walk in on are the weirdest things I've ever heard of things. But it's a really great experience to be able to be there and stuff. Currently on our board of directors, I've got 12 members of the board of directors. 5 of them are formerly incarcerated, including my board president and my treasurer. So we really take to heart that our clients direct what we do. And we're always looking to try and develop people into leadership positions. Our circle keepers, how many of our circle keepers do you think are formerly incarcerated?
I think all of them now are formerly incarcerated who've been trained as circle keepers, and they there's an expression, well, a few expressions. One, those closest to the problem or closest to the solution. The people who've been in the criminal justice system are the ones who are most acutely aware of where it falls short of the principles that we say that we believe in, where it's unjust. And then there's also, I think of Martise, you're mentioning Heather, Martise Scales, Jojo Pie and Saroma up at the Alma Center that does similar work to Project Return, walking with men and women coming home from incarceration. She has this lovely expression that pain that is not transformed is transferred. And Project Return allows people and accompanies people to transform their pain into something strong. They become what Richard Rohr calls wounded healers. And out of their own wounds, they are able to heal the community because they're the ones who've experienced it. One thing I appreciate a lot about Project Return, who had its annual gala last night down at Marquette University, was Project Return is always raising up and affirming people who've been previously incarcerated to take positions of leadership in changing us as a community. And sometimes within the nonprofit space, because resources are difficult to find, there can be a silo mentality because people are competing with others doing the same work for the same dollars. And one thing I appreciate about Project Return is they are always collaborating with others in that space. So Table of Saints and Project Return grew up out of Cross Lutheran Church. Table of Saints grew up out of Project Return. Expo has part of its growth has come out of Project Return. Expo is ex-incarcerated people organizing. So there's something beautiful about that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, our goal is basically to give people the opportunities to be what they want to be in. And a key aspect to what we are is a lot of times we have to believe more in the person than they believe in themselves until they get there. And they will get there. I wholeheartedly believe that everybody we work with will eventually get to be the person they want to be. It just might take longer with some people. The first guy that I worked with, actually, I've seen him reincarcerated 8 times. This was 21 years ago, literally the first guy, but he still comes in. I talk with him every couple months. He's been out now for 8 years, as long as he's ever been free in his life, and he's doing real well. But it took him a while, and I had to watch him fall numerous times, and I had to be there when he came out, and he hung his head low, and I'm like, no, pick yourself up, we're gonna do this. You're gonna do it right this time. And that's difficult because he didn't believe it. But when he finally began to believe it, it's like the doors just opened for him. You had a question?
I was just curious along those lines, do you do outcome studies? Are you able to measure anything like that?
Well, we've done some studies to determine what the issues are on things, and there have been studies that have not been done necessarily specifically about Project Return, but similar programs. I think you've got some, or have seen some studies of the impact of like reentry populations if an individual goes through a program like Project Return versus trying to do it on their own things.
Yeah, so for sure, circles of support are modeled on circles of support and accountability that are run out of Connecticut or Vermont. They always get those
Vermont.
Vermont.
Yep.
And the Vermont University has done studies on the outcomes of people who go through circles of support and accountability. And I want to say the number of reincarceration rate is cut in half. Which isn't rocket science. You know, our parents, for many of us who've grown up in a loving household, loved us into our potential because they could see things that we couldn't see. And the loving relationship that exists when people come to Project Return is no different. The encouragement, the support, the Martise Scales, going back to him again, at one of the reentry council meetings we had, he spoke about coming out of prison and people looking at you with and judging you, and how that limits you to claiming the person that God made you to be. And then Ray Mendoza, who'd spent 12 years in prison, I think it was Ray, said imposter syndrome. That one of the gifts of Project Return is that we all experience imposter syndrome to some degree in our lives, but people who come home from prison experience it acutely. That they go into a public setting and some people can see is this is somebody who's committed a felony. This is somebody who took somebody else's life, and they limit that person's ability to be the person that God created them to be. And it's very hard for people coming home from prison to break out of that mindset when they're met with that judgment so often. But having people who love you and accompany you and encourage you can be transformative, like Wendel explained, and that's really just a beautiful thing.
More of our statistics and stuff are more anecdotal because everything we do is really relationship based. So, and that's part of what I really struggle with what we do at Project Return is that people come in and be like, well, we want to talk to this group of people here. And I've actually done this with reporters and stuff. Is like I've told them they're asking the wrong questions. You're gonna get this story, that's fine, but it's not gonna give you the answers you want because you're asking the wrong questions here. And I really struggle because a lot of times some of these studies and some of the things they want to do is like I want to tell people like they're not zoo animals, they're people. One of my caseworkers, Brian Osai, he talked about that. There was a story that they ran about him in the Journal Sentinel, and the headline of it was ex-inmate helping people. And he's like, my kids see that. I'm not an ex-inmate. I'm a man. Treat me like I'm a man. Yeah. And that's kind of what we are trying to do is really provide the dignity of humanity back. You have a question? I know we're running out of time.
It's short. I know you mentioned the county and like the state correctional systems. Are you limited to like working in the Milwaukee area, or do you work in other parts of the state too?
There's a network of different organizations throughout the state. Project Return is only located in Milwaukee, so we tend to, more of the 5 counties in southeast Wisconsin we tend to work with. But there are organizations like we're seeing vocational ministries, and we're seeing is fantastic. They do great work, and we're seeing in Kenosha counties, Madison area urban ministries, obviously in Madison. Wisdom's network across the state is really a wonderful access point. So our goal is basically, if somebody comes to us, if we're not able to find them or help them, that we'll find them a resource that can help them and can get them to that next step.
I have
Thank
one
you.
last question.
Sure.
Wendell, how did you meet me? Or how did I meet you?
Yeah, I was gonna say and stuff. You probably have heard a lot of these stories. I used to live with Sheila, so
We
we-
did
we-
Lutheran Volunteer
Yeah.
Corps in 2000, 2001, and Wendell's placement, we each had a placement at a different place, and Wendell never left.
Yeah. It was not the goal. The goal was to end up on the East Coast and stuff. But I just love Project Return so much. It addresses both aspects of things. And then we didn't even talk about our advocacy component of what we do at Project Return to advocate for the rights and the abilities of our clientele and stuff. But we handle all aspects of that, and it really, like I said before, it's like we work with each individual and believe in the dignity of that person. And it is so sad when I go into institutions and talk with individuals, and I tell them, it's like, you can do this, we're here to help you and stuff, and you can see people's ears perk up, because literally, I think the first person ever told me it can be something. And that is heartbreaking. But that's where we're working at and stuff, so.
And Wendell's been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah, I wanna, and I always get this feeling of Project Hope when I hear stories like that. So I wanna thank Conor, Wendell, and Heather for coming today. And they're gonna stick around a little bit afterwards if you'd like to talk to them. But
Thank
some of
you,
us
Heather.
have to go.
And I can tell you stories about Sheila that I